My name is Rachel Whitmore, and what I'm about to share with you completely transformed my understanding of life, death, and eternity. On the morning of May 7th, 2022, I didn't just nearly die, I actually died for 11 minutes and 17 seconds. In that time, Jesus Christ revealed to me the most profound truths about life, heaven, and the purpose of our existence on earth. What I learned shattered every preconceived idea I had about what truly matters. I was told to share this experience with the world, and though I've struggled to put it all into words, I know I must, because what I saw could change your life forever. But to truly understand the weight of these revelations, you need to know how I got there. Before that day, I had what most people would consider a perfect life. I was 36 years old, living in Los Angeles, working as a real estate agent with an impeccable sales record. My social media was filled with smiling photos of successful closings, luxury homes, and glamorous vacations. On the surface, it seemed like I had it all. A thriving career, friends, a beautiful apartment, a new relationship that seemed promising. And yet, deep down, I often felt something was missing. I would tell myself, I just need the next promotion, the next vacation, the next milestone. Then I'll be happy. I grew up in a Christian household. My parents took me to church every Sunday, and I knew the stories of Jesus. But once I went to college, I put faith on the back burner. I wasn't hostile to God. I just didn't think about him much. I figured as long as I was a good person, that was enough. Looking back now, I realize I was spiritually asleep, cruising through life without realizing how fragile it all is. It was a sunny Saturday morning, and I had plans to meet clients for a home showing in the hills of Malibu. My mind was buzzing with stress. Mortgage rates were rising, competition was fierce, and I'd spent the previous night obsessing over my sales numbers. I was running late that morning. I grabbed a quick coffee, threw on my favorite blazer, and jumped into my car. I didn't realize I'd never make it to that showing. As I merged onto the Pacific Coast Highway, I barely noticed the beauty of the ocean beside me. My phone buzzed with an email notification, and my hand instinctively reached for it. I'll just take a quick glance, I thought. The next few moments are seared into my memory. Out of nowhere, a massive black pickup truck swerved into my lane. I jerked the wheel to avoid it, but the car spiraled out of control. I remember hearing the screech of tires, the deafening crash of metal, and my own scream. And then, everything went black. What happened next is something I've wrestled to describe ever since. How do you explain stepping out of reality? How do you put into words something that feels more real than anything you've ever experienced on Earth? The first thing I noticed was the absence of pain. One moment, I was in excruciating agony as the car crumpled around me, and the next, I felt completely weightless, as though my body had vanished altogether. I opened my eyes and found myself hovering above the crash scene. I could see everything in perfect detail. My mangled car crumpled against the guardrail, a small crowd forming, the frantic movements of the paramedics trying to pull me free. It was me they were working on. My face was pale. My body was limp. And yet, I felt no fear. Only a profound sense of peace. Time seemed to slow. I watched the scene unfolding below, but I was no longer tethered to it. In that moment, I felt something behind me, pulling me gently but irresistibly away. I turned, and that's when I saw it, a light unlike anything I'd ever imagined. It wasn't just bright, it was alive. It pulsed and shimmered with a warmth that felt like pure love. Instinctively, I moved toward it. I didn't walk or run. It was as though I was being drawn forward, carried by an unseen force. The closer I got, the more I began to hear something indescribable. A sound so beautiful it brought tears to my eyes. It was music, but not like anything on earth. It was as though every perfect note, every harmonic vibration in existence had been woven together. I could hear countless voices singing, yet they weren't chaotic. It was a symphony of unity, a sound that seemed to resonate through every fiber of my being. And that's when I saw him. Jesus Christ stood before me. If I could spend the rest of my life painting him, I still wouldn't come close to capturing what I saw. His presence was overwhelming, not in a frightening way, but in its sheer power and beauty. He wasn't just a man, he was light. His entire being radiated love, purity, and authority, like the very essence of heaven itself. But it was his eyes that I'll never forget. They were deep and eternal, holding the weight of the universe, yet filled with a tenderness so personal that it took my breath away. He looked at me as though I were the only soul that had ever existed, and I knew I was fully known and fully loved. "Rachel," he said, and his voice wasn't just a sound, it was a vibration that filled the very core of my spirit. "Come with me. There is much I want to show you." In that instant, I knew two things. This was Jesus. Everything I'd ever searched for, purpose, meaning, fulfillment, was found in him. Jesus extended his hand, and as I took it, the light around us seemed to intensify. The next thing I knew, we were moving. Not walking, but traveling faster than I could comprehend, as though reality itself was bending around us. Suddenly, we stopped. I looked around, and my breath caught in my throat. We were in heaven. Imagine the most beautiful place you've ever seen, then multiply it infinitely. The colors were unlike anything on earth, vivid, radiant, and alive. Fields of wildflowers stretched as far as the eye could see, shimmering with hues I'd never seen before. The sky glowed with a golden light, as though it were lit from within. Every blade of grass, every leaf, every particle of air seemed to sing with life. There was no death, no decay, only the overwhelming sense of perfection. I turned to Jesus, tears streaming down my face. "What is this place?" I asked. "This," he said with a gentle smile, "is just a glimpse of home." As he spoke, I realized I was no longer weighed down by the fears, doubts, and insecurities I'd carried all my life. I felt completely free, freer than I'd ever known was possible. I had so many questions. "Why did you bring me here?" I whispered. "To show you the truth," he said. "The truth about who you are, why you were created, and what your life on earth is truly meant to be." His words filled me with both awe and anticipation. My life on earth had always felt so ordinary. Could it really have deeper meaning? Jesus gestured for me to follow, and as we walked, he began to speak, not just to my ears, but directly to my spirit. "What you are about to see will change your understanding of life," he said. "It is not for you alone. You must share it with others, for this is why I have brought you here." I nodded, my heart pounding with both reverence and wonder. I had no idea what lay ahead, but I knew one thing. I would never be the same. As we walked deeper into the heart of heaven, I felt a stirring in my soul, a realization that everything I thought I knew about life was about to be turned upside down. As I followed Jesus deeper into heaven, I could hardly comprehend the beauty around me. Every step I took felt weightless, as though I were walking on air, and yet the ground beneath my feet was more solid and real than anything I'd ever known on earth. The air itself seemed alive, carrying the scent of something sweet and pure, like fresh rain mingled with the fragrance of blooming flowers. I could hear laughter echoing in the distance, as if carried on the breeze, and a warmth, an indescribable warmth, filled me to the core. The feeling was like being embraced by the very essence of love. Where are we? I finally managed to ask. This is the place I have prepared, Jesus replied softly, his voice resonating through me. It is your home. It is what you were created for. Tears welled in my eyes. But why show this to me now? I don't deserve this. I haven't lived my life the way I should have. Jesus stopped and turned to me. His gaze pierced through every insecurity, every mistake, and every regret I'd ever held. Rachel, he said, and his voice was both firm and tender, you are not here because you deserve it. You are here because you are loved. Those words shook me to my core. I had spent so much of my life striving for success, for approval, for meaning, never realizing that I was already enough. You were created with a purpose, Jesus continued, and that purpose is not found in the things of the world. Let me show you what life truly means. In an instant, the breathtaking beauty of heaven shifted. I blinked, and suddenly we were standing above what looked like Earth, but not as I'd ever seen it. It was as though we hovered above the entire world, able to see cities, mountains, oceans, and people all at once. The Earth below looked small, and yet I could see every detail. I saw streets packed with people hurrying from one place to the next, their faces etched with exhaustion and worry. I saw traffic jams, crowds staring at their phones, and families sitting in silence around dinner tables, disconnected from one another. I saw people striving, endlessly striving, for wealth, for power, for love, for something to fill the emptiness inside them. Look closely, Jesus said, his tone filled with sadness and compassion. As I watched, I could see their hearts. It was as though the people below were transparent, and inside each one was a void, a deep, aching emptiness that no amount of success, money, or pleasure could fill. Some tried to fill it with work, chasing promotions and titles that never satisfied. Others filled it with material things, bigger houses, nicer cars, designer clothes. Still others turned to relationships, seeking fulfillment in romantic partners, only to find themselves lonelier than before. The saddest of all were those who turned to numbing, drugs, alcohol, endless distractions, trying desperately to silence the void they couldn't escape. Do you see? Jesus asked, his voice heavy with grief. They are searching for meaning in all the wrong places. Tears streamed down my face as I watched. The people I was seeing could have been anyone. My friends, my coworkers, even me. I saw myself in them, the striving, the chasing, the emptiness I'd felt for so long. This void, Jesus said, can only be filled by me. For I am the one who created them. I am the one who gives their lives meaning. And yet, they look everywhere but to me. The vision shifted, and I saw the moment of a baby's first breath, new life entering the world. The light that surrounded each child was unlike anything I'd ever seen, pure, radiant, and full of promise. These children, Jesus said, are born with purpose. Each soul is precious to me. Each one was created with a unique plan in mind. Suddenly, I saw a timeline appear before me. It began with birth and stretched across a person's life. Childhood, teenage years, adulthood, old age. I could see how the choices people made throughout their lives either drew them closer to their purpose or further away from it. When I created mankind, Jesus said, I gave them the gift of free will, the ability to choose how they would live. Life is a journey, a chance to know me, to love others, and to become who I created them to be. But so many have forgotten why they are here. He paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle over me. Life, he continued, is not about success, status, or comfort. It is about relationship. Relationship with me and relationship with one another. It is about loving others as I have loved you. At that moment, the vision shifted again, and I saw something extraordinary. Before me was a vast, radiant kingdom, more beautiful than words can describe. People were gathered together, laughing, singing, and embracing one another. There was no jealousy, no bitterness, no loneliness. "They are rich," Jesus said. I was confused. "But there's no money here." Jesus smiled. "The currency of heaven is not wealth. It is love." He gestured, and I saw scenes of people's lives from earth. I watched as an elderly man sat beside a sick friend, comforting him with kindness. I saw a mother sacrificing her own needs to care for her children. I saw a teenager sharing food with a homeless stranger. "These are the moments that matter," Jesus said. "These acts of love are what will endure forever. They are more valuable than gold, for they reflect my heart." I began to see my own life play out before me. I saw the times I had been kind, the moments I'd helped someone without expecting anything in return. But I also saw the times I'd chosen selfishness over love, when I'd ignored someone's need, when I'd spoken harshly, when I'd put my own desires above others. "Rachel," Jesus said gently, "every moment of your life is an opportunity to love, to leave a legacy that will last for eternity. The question is, how will you use the time you've been given?" Jesus then showed me something that broke my heart: the lies that the world tells us. I saw people being bombarded by messages telling them that their worth comes from their appearance, their achievements, or their possessions. "The world has deceived my children," Jesus said. "It tells them that they are not enough, that they must earn their value. But I tell you the truth. They are already precious, for I created them in my image." As he spoke, I felt something in me break, an old belief that I had to prove my worth to others, to God, and even to myself. "You are loved because I made you," Jesus said. "Not because of what you do, not because of what you achieve. You are loved simply because you are mine." Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder and looked deeply into my eyes. "Rachel, I brought you here because you still have work to do. I am sending you back to tell others what you have seen. Tell them that their lives have purpose. Tell them that I love them. Tell them to stop striving and start living for what truly matters." I felt overwhelmed. "But Jesus, I don't know how. What if they don't believe me?" "Do not worry," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "Your job is not to convince anyone. Your job is to share the truth. Leave the rest to me." He took my hand, and suddenly, the radiant beauty of heaven began to fade. I felt myself being pulled backward, as though I were falling through space. The music grew quieter. The light dimmed. And then, I gasped for air, jolting awake in a hospital bed. My chest ached, my lungs burned, and monitors beeped loudly around me. Nurses and doctors rushed to my side, their faces a mix of relief and disbelief. "You're back?" one of them said. "We thought we lost you." I had been dead for over 11 minutes. But I was no longer the same person. I had seen heaven. I had spoken to Jesus. And I knew, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that my life would never be the same. As I lay in that hospital bed, my body weak but my spirit stronger than ever, I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd just experienced. The beauty of heaven, the words of Jesus, and the truths he'd revealed weighed on me with a mix of urgency and peace. I had seen eternity. I had seen what truly matters. And now I had been given a second chance, a divine mission to share it with the world. But where would I begin? Over the following weeks, as I recovered physically, I wrestled with what to do next. How could I share something so incredible, so divine, when I didn't have all the right words to describe it? How could I tell people about heaven, about the meaning of life, without sounding crazy? Every time doubt crept in, I remembered what Jesus had told me. Your job is not to convince anyone. Your job is to share the truth. Those words gave me the courage to start small. I began by sharing my experience with close friends and family. Some listened with open hearts, their eyes wide with wonder. Others smiled politely but looked at me as if I were imagining things. I realized then that not everyone would believe me, and that was okay. But for those who did, those whose spirits stirred at the sound of the truth, there was hope. I couldn't stop thinking about the words Jesus had spoken during my time in heaven. His revelations came back to me in crystal clarity, as if they were etched onto my very soul. Here are the truths that he showed me, truths that changed everything. 1. We were created for relationship. Jesus showed me that the core of our existence is relationship, with him and with one another. Life is not about what we can achieve, accumulate, or prove. It's about love. I saw how every act of kindness, every moment spent loving someone else, echoes into eternity. In heaven, no one talks about how big their house was, how much money they made, or how many followers they had. What matters are the moments of love, the sacrifices, the generosity, the compassion. He reminded me of his greatest commandment. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. 2. Earth is not our home. I had spent so much of my life clinging to the things of this world, money, status, possessions, believing they would bring me happiness. But in heaven, Jesus showed me how temporary and insignificant those things really are. Rachel, he had said, you are not of this world. Your true home is with me. When we leave this earth, we take nothing with us except our souls and the love we've shared. Knowing this changed the way I viewed life. I began to see my time on earth as a preparation for eternity. A journey of becoming who God created me to be. 3. Everyone has a purpose. Jesus made it clear that every life matters, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem. He showed me that each person is created with a unique purpose, a divine role in God's plan. I remembered asking him, what if someone feels like they don't matter? Jesus looked at me with such love and said, to me, no one is insignificant. I have numbered the very hairs on their heads. Each life is precious, and each moment is an opportunity to fulfill their purpose. 4. Time is short. While I stood with Jesus, time felt irrelevant, like an eternal now. But when he showed me the world, I saw how fragile and fleeting our time on earth truly is. Life is but a vapor, he said. Do not waste it chasing things that do not matter. Live each day with purpose, with love, and with me at the center of your life. I realized how much time I had wasted on things that didn't matter, worrying about my career, obsessing over my appearance, striving for approval from others. None of it had eternal value. One of the most powerful moments during my time with Jesus came when he showed me a glimpse of what was to come. It wasn't a vision of terror or doom, but a call to prepare. I saw a world that was growing darker, filled with chaos, division, and confusion. People were becoming more disconnected from God, consumed by technology, wealth, and empty pleasures. Faith seemed to fade as people placed their trust in human systems instead of God. But then Jesus showed me something beautiful. Amid the darkness, I saw light, small pockets of people who refused to conform to the world's ways. These were people who had chosen to trust God, no matter the cost. They lived in strong, loving communities, supporting one another and shining like beacons of hope in a broken world. "These are my people," Jesus said, "those who choose me over the world. Though the times will be hard, they will not be overcome, for I will be with them." He emphasized the importance of preparing now, not with fear, but with faith. "Tell my people to strengthen their hearts," he said. "Tell them to build their lives on me, for I am the rock that cannot be shaken." As Jesus spoke those words, I felt a pull, like I was being drawn back to earth. I looked at him, tears streaming down my face. "I don't want to leave," I whispered. He smiled, his eyes filled with love. "It is not yet your time, Rachel. But remember this: I am with you always, even until the end of the age." His words echoed in my soul as the radiant light of heaven began to fade. The music grew quieter, and I felt myself falling back into my body. The next thing I knew, I was gasping for breath in a hospital bed, surrounded by doctors and nurses. I was back. Since that day, I have never been the same. I no longer see life as a race to achieve, to earn, or to prove anything. Instead, I see it as a gift, a chance to love God, to love others, and to fulfill the purpose He created me for. I began living with intention. I deepened my relationship with God through prayer, Bible study, and worship. I focused on loving people, not as a duty, but as an overflow of the love God had shown me. I stopped striving for temporary things and started investing in what truly matters: faith, relationships, and acts of kindness. I also started sharing my story, first with friends, then with strangers, and eventually with anyone who would listen. Not everyone believed me, but that didn't matter. My job was to share the truth, and I trusted God to do the rest. As I share this with you now, my hope is that you will hear the same message Jesus spoke to me. You are loved. You were created with purpose. And your life matters more than you could ever imagine. Don't wait until it's too late to realize what truly matters. Life is short, but eternity is forever. Live each day with love, with faith, and with your eyes fixed on Jesus. Because one day, whether through death or His return, you will stand before Him. And in that moment, all the striving, all the distractions, and all the temporary things of this world will fade away. The only thing that will remain is the love you shared, the faith you held, and the relationship you built with Him. Jesus is not just waiting for you in heaven. He is with you now, calling you to live a life of meaning, purpose, and love. If you hear His voice today, don't ignore it. He is saying to you, as He said to me, "Come to me, for I am the way, the truth, and the life." And I promise you, once you truly know Him, your life will never be the same.